watching closely.
What's the secret, Max?
You just gotta find something you love to do and then do it for the rest of your life.
I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me.
Hello, welcome back to The Establishing Shots, a podcast where we do deep dives into directors and their filmographies. We are going to do a short film draft, a draft of short films.
Yes.
To kind of go along with the Wes Anderson shorts discussion we had here with Chase Abels, brother-in-law. And yeah, I'm excited. I watched a ton of short films. It's like, so it's one of those things where I watch a lot of movies in pieces just because, you know, I'll have like 20 minutes when I'm eating lunch at work and I'll just like throw on something, or something like that. But with these short films, it was like really easy to like, oh, I can just watch this 12-minute short, no problem. And then like, or like at night when I would usually turn on a movie, there was a couple of nights recently where I ended up watching like probably like 5 or 6 short films just because like, oh, this is just 12 minutes. Oh, this is just 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And so you just like keep watching them.
Yeah, I've been doing the same.
Yeah. So it's been fun. I had seen, you know, some short films, but like I really caught up on a lot of stuff in the past like 2 weeks. So that's been really fun. But yeah, I wanted Chase to do this with me because he talks about short films a lot, just like in our conversations. And so I was like, oh, out of all my friends, I'm almost positive Chase has seen the most short films out of all of them. You've probably seen more short films than me for sure. I would like put money on it because until I did this, like it was really just like very sporadic short film watching for me. But yeah, we're gonna draft short films. I was gonna say to for one, this is like it's not very specific. It's specific because of the length of the films, and not a lot of people watch short films. And so I'm kind of like guessing that a lot of the films we're going to be drafting, like people have not seen, even in an audience that's like listening to a film podcast.
Sure.
Just because people don't ever, like me personally, I love film, but I don't ever think about short films. I'm always like, oh, I need to see this next feature film that's coming out. And that's mostly what I think about and try to watch and anticipate. Like, short films are kind of like back here and I don't ever think about them, you know? But this has been really a cool experience, just catching up on a ton of well-regarded short films these past couple weeks. It's been really cool. I think it's something that I'll probably definitely like keep not in the same frequency as I have been, but definitely like make sure to like build into my film watching palette more often.
It's a fun thing to do. It really is. I don't know. There's something about, you know, a lot of times for short content, you'll, you know, kind of turn to like TV or whatever. And I don't know, there's something satisfying about having a full, you know, media experience in like that short amount of time rather than just getting like an episode of something.
Yeah. And I've, at this point in my life, like I hardly watch any TV at all. It's just like, because it is like that, it's like I'm just getting a piece of something, and like I feel like I have, maybe it's just a personality thing, I guess. Like I have a completist mindset, and so like I feel like I have to finish a TV show if I start it. I'm that way with books. That can like put me off of starting a book because I have this like I have to be all in before I start this book.
Gotcha.
And so that's probably, but yeah, it is that like, it is nice to not feel like, oh, now I have to watch the other like 9 seasons of this. Like,
Yes.
I can just watch the short film and it's done. That was the whole experience. Yeah, that's nice. I didn't really think about it that way, but for sure. But yeah, that being the case, I really feel like this is going to be more of a recommendations draft. I'm still going to put the poll up and let people vote. I feel like some of the things I have in mind might sway the vote in my favor, because Chase was like, I don't think people have seen any of the ones. And I'm like, well, I have a couple in mind that people have probably seen, but
I have some. I have a few that are at least names that people will know. So
Yeah.
that might
Yeah.
I don't know.
yeah, maybe so. But yeah, so we're going to,
And another nice thing about them being shorts is if somebody listens to the episode and one of them sounds like something they want to watch, they can just hurry up and go watch it real
Yeah.
fast before they vote.
exactly. Yeah. So look through the list, go watch all of them, and then vote.
You don't have to watch all of them, but if you
Watch a few from each.
Yeah.
You know.
Get an idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're gonna do, so there's sometimes like you'll see maybe like an episode of a special episode of a TV show up like as a short, like a quote unquote short film, like
Sure.
on Letterboxd, and I don't think we'll draft those.
Yeah, I don't think I've got any of those.
I did watch a couple of old Looney Tunes shorts. I don't guess I'll draft those just because they're more, I don't know that the intention of their release was like as a short film. It's
Sure.
more as like a cartoon to watch on Saturday morning.
Sure.
But yeah, I did rewatch two of the probably the most well regarded and probably two of my favorites that I remember from a child, in Duck Amuck with Daffy Duck interacting with the illustrator. Really great one.
I've seen that before.
Turns out it's Bugs Bunny. And then What's Opera Doc, where it's Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny doing the it's the, I can't remember the opera piece it is, but it's Elmer Fudd is playing Siegfried, and Bugs Bunny is like basically like in drag as Brunhilde.
Gotcha.
And it's like it's played as opera, and it's like the Elmer Fudd at the one point is doing the familiar tune, but he's singing "Kill the Wabbit, kill the Wabbit." So that one's really great. That's probably one of my favorite Looney Tunes. I remember watching that as a kid and loving it.
Nice.
But yeah, so probably won't draft those. But yeah, otherwise, like, short films are on the table. We'll go ahead and put these Wes ones as the honorary mentions, since they were the discussion of the episode that spurred this draft on. I need to start putting that when I put the poll up, is make sure to mention like, hey, we didn't draft these because we talked about them for so many hours.
Sure.
But yeah, so we're going to be doing the draft. I think we said we're going to do 7. We're going to draft 7 each. And again, these are going to be, maybe you've seen these if you're really into film and really like into watching short films. But if you're like me, you might not have seen these before. And I only saw them because I had this draft coming up. But yeah, so take this as a recommendation list, and they're short films. You can just go throw them on during your lunch and watch it while you eat lunch, and it's like watching a TV episode. Most of these are like anywhere from like a few minutes to like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
At the most. So yeah, really great. The way I usually do it is I'll do with my guess is if you've been on before and you got the first pick, then I take the first pick when you come back on. So we'll do that.
Fair enough.
To stay consistent. So I'm going to do the first pick. It's tough. I actually have a few that I rated 5 stars. 5 out of 5. And so I guess I'll start with one of those. I'll do this. I'll pick the one that showed up on the Sight and Sound top 100 list, the critics Sight and Sound, and that's Maya Deren's Meshes of the Afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
It is a 1943 film directed by a female director, which is very rare in 1943.
Yes.
And Maya Deren was really like a forerunner of the kind of avant-garde filmmaking movement that kind of happened in Europe kind of after that. After she kind of like had made her, like, she made several short films. Another one that's really good is called At Land, that I really liked. And if you're unfamiliar with like avant-garde filmmaking or avant-garde art in general, it's kind of like it's basically just like art that's disorienting or out of place, or it's strange. It's kind of like I guess the main thrust of it's very experimental. And so the narrative here is like of a woman like returning home and falling asleep, but then she kind of does it again, but she's already done it. And so she's starting to like see herself in several iterations. And there's like some strange things that happen. And there's like even this sequence that like is, well, it should be that the hallway fight in Inception is reminiscent of this, but it's actually, most people have seen Inception and not this, so it's like this is reminiscent of Inception. But yeah, there's this like weird like sequence where like the place she's in is like rotating, and it's like gravity's weird, and it's just all these strange things are happening. And it's just really cool filmmaking. It's creative. It's basically a silent film. There's not any dialogue at all.
Right.
It has sound, but there's no dialogue. So I don't know like where that lies on, like, is it a silent film or not? Like, I guess it is, but it also like has sound that matches what you're seeing on the screen. So,
sure.
But yeah, there's a lot packed in there. I think it deals some with like psychological distress and depression visually, obviously, since there's no dialogue. And maybe even something about the burden of patriarchy weighing down on the creativity of females in society, kind of built into what's happening.
Sure.
When you watch it, that'll make more sense.
Yeah.
But
it's been a long time since I've seen this, but I have seen it before, and it's very striking.
Yes, it's one of those things like the Wes Anderson shorts. It's like, wow, I've never really seen anything quite like that on screen before. And it's one of those films that's like, it's really good, and like you'll probably enjoy watching it and at least like respect the filmmaking, but it's also like important in film history too. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's started to show up on the Sight and Sound list as, a top 100 film in film history because of that. So yeah, it's a good one. Meshes of the Afternoon. And I need to pull up something where I can write down our draft results.
Fair enough.
But yeah, you can go. While I do that, you want to take your first pick?
Sure. Let's see. For my first pick, I am going to go with I'm actually going to go with an early Martin Scorsese short.
Oh, okay. I
With
like it.
What's a Nice Girl Like You Doing in a Place Like This?
That's a good one.
Uh-huh.
I watched that. I actually watched that just because I was on a Scorsese kick right around Killers of the Flower Moon.
Gotcha.
So it really didn't have anything to do with this draft, but I did watch it recently.
There were two Scorsese shorts that had come up. Just me kind of doing research for the draft.
Yeah.
And this one and one called
The Big Shave.
Big Shave. Yes.
Yeah, that one was disturbing.
Yeah, I'm not going to put that one on the list, but this was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I'll just for the setup. It's just like a guy kind of going out on his own, I suppose, for the first time, kind of like out in the big city and decorating his apartment, and he buys a picture for decoration and just kind of fixates on it.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like what this fixation kind of does with his life.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's a lot of fun. It's really funny in several moments, like the way the main character narrates and just some of the visual gags that Scorsese does with it. It's really fun.
Yeah, for sure.
I really recommend it.
Yeah.
Hi. Quick reminder that you, yes, you, can be a huge help to the production of this show. If you visit establishingshotpod.com/donate, you'll find out how to join the Establishing Shot family through some giving tiers starting as low as $5 a month. You heard that right, only $5 a month. And not only will you be helping me keep the show going, but you'll also get some perks yourself, like early and ad-free episodes, bonus episodes, access to a Discord server where we can chat it up about the show and movies in general, and more. Might even let you choose a movie for me to review for the show. Check out that link in the show notes to learn more. Back to the show.
Yeah, that's a good one. Another Scorsese. I don't think it quite qualifies as a short film. I think it's like right around 50 minutes. But he has a documentary, Italian American. Have you ever watched that?
I have not.
It's just him sitting at the kitchen table. No, like in the living room and at the table eating dinner with his parents and interviewing his parents.
Gotcha.
It's really great.
That sounds great.
It's
that
fantastic.
Sounds charming.
Yes, very much so, and funny, and like even like very like sweet and in some moments too. But yeah, that's just a side recommendation. My second pick. I keep putting my phone where you can see my movies. I don't want you to see them. My second pick, I've seen Meshes in the Afternoon. I actually rewatched it for this. I watched it a while back, maybe like a few years ago, maybe. But this one, I've always like known was a thing and haven't ever gotten around to it. And finally did for this draft. And it is called it. Well, so the English translation would be The House of Small Cubes. But if you like look it up on Letterboxd, is it Japanese originally? What is it? Let's see. Details.
For whatever reason, I thought it was. I know this too.
So it's Japanese, but if you look at most places, it actually has a French translation for the title.
Interesting.
Which is, La Maison en Petits Cubes. I don't know how to say cubes in French, but yeah, I don't know why. That's a strange thing about it. But I watched this while I ate lunch one day, like a week or two ago. And I don't know if you've ever tried to eat while you're weeping, but it's really hard. This is like a really it's one of those sweet, sad little stories. And it's an animated short. It's this like really cute old man. And it's it's a really cool world building too. It's silent. so there's not any explaining of what's going on, but you come to realize that like the world is just like slowly flooding more and more, or at least like this town where he lives. And so like people have been like just keeping on building on top of their houses to like stay above the water. And so he drops like his pipe or something down, like, and there's these little like hatches to like where you can like go down, but it's
Into
like
the lower levels.
yeah, and it's underwater, and he like drops his pipe, and so he's diving down to do it. But as he does, he like is reliving in his mind like the memories of what was happening at that point of his life, where it was at that level, and you're just like, I'm like watching this, like eating my lunch, like weeping because it's like so sweet and so sad. And you're like crying because of how sad it is, but you're also like crying because there's such like sweet, happy memories. And oh man, it's really good. It's really, really good. Super well made. The animation is great. Yeah, highly recommend it. The House of Small. If you look up the House of Small Cubes, you can watch a lot of these. I don't want to say a lot, but a good bit of these you can find like on YouTube.
Yeah.
This one's definitely on YouTube because that's where I watched it. But they won't. A lot of them are fine quality. Obviously, like it's probably not the best quality on YouTube.
Sure,
but you get what you can find. So, yeah, that's my second pick. The House of Small Cubes.
I'm very glad that was on your list.
Yeah. I didn't say the director. It's and the pronunciation is going to be bad because he's Japanese. Kunio Kato. Kato something. Anyways, yeah. You were saying you were glad.
Yes, yeah. I'm a little bit kicking myself for not taking that as my first pick now, but I'm glad that one of us mentioned it, and I'm glad that I didn't realize you had seen it. I'm glad you've seen it.
Yeah,
and that you love it because it's fantastic.
It's one of those two that I've drafted so far. I have rated as 5 stars.
Yeah, I've got that rated as a 5 star as well. Yeah. It's excellent. Okay, I'm going to go with a short called Crack by Frederick Bach.
Okay.
He's a Canadian animator. This is from 1980. Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's just the story of a guy who, like at the very beginning of the short, he builds a rocking chair. That's like the name of the short is like comes from like him chopping down the tree to like make the wood. Like when the tree falls over, it says like the big letters come up and it says crack.
Okay.
Yeah, he goes through like the whole process of making the chair, and then it's just kind of like you like living like the like whole lifespan of like his family, like and his house, like from the perspective of this rocking chair. And then like even the rocking chair's life, past, whenever they finally end up getting rid of it and stuff. And
yeah,
I don't know, it's really, really gorgeous. It's really charming. I watched several of his shorts because I absolutely fell in love with this one and one of his others. But yeah, I highly recommend it.
Very cool. Yeah. I hadn't heard of this. What's the director's name again?
Frederick Bach. It's French spelling for Frederick, so it's Frederic. Bach.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to find it so I can put it in my list.
It's
CRAC.
Yes, CRAC.
Watch list added. Very cool. Yeah. I've seen I like this animation from the poster at least. Very cool. Yeah, I hadn't even heard of that one. So, oh wait, this is the guy who did The Man Who Planted Trees.
Yes, which I have not seen.
Okay,
but yes, he is.
I haven't seen it either, but it's one that I was planning on getting around to and didn't.
The other one of his that I almost drafted is called The Creation of Birds.
Okay,
Yeah.
Creation of Birds. There we go. So we're getting like a lot of if you're just looking at the poll on Instagram, you're just going to get the 7. But if you listen, you're going to get a lot of recommendations of shorts to watch. And now it's my turn, and I don't know what to do. I guess I'll go ahead and stick with my 5 stars for now. And I don't know if you've seen these, so I'm hoping I can get these back to back. I'll start with one of the most devastating movies I've ever watched, ever.
Okay.
But is just incredible filmmaking. It's a 32-minute short from 1956. It's a German, French. Sorry, it's a French film, documentary basically by Alain Resnais. Man, the French is not coming out, which is sad because I live in Lafayette, Louisiana. Alain Resnais, called Night and Fog. It is he's basically documents the atrocities in Hitler's concentration camps. So there's a bunch of archive footage that he uses of like actual concentration camp footage, but then like it's juxtaposed with he does some filming of those locations in 1956, like some of those locations are just abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
and like there's all this growth, vegetation and growth happening, and flowers and grass, in this just abandoned place where these atrocities happened. And so he narrate. I don't know if he narrates it. No, it's another guy narrating, Michel Bouquet. And it's like, it's absolutely devastating to watch. But it's like, it's juxtaposed. Like, it's devastating to the point where there were a few times where like I couldn't look. Like I was like watching some of the archive footage, obviously, not just the locations are like plenty fine to watch, but some of that archive footage is just what they're doing with like bodies. I couldn't watch it. But there's like this. I'm going to read this quote.
Sure.
That comes, I think, towards the end. It says, "With our sincere gaze, we survey these ruins as if the old monster lay crushed forever beneath the rubble. We pretend to take up hope again as the image recedes into the past, as if we were cured once and for all of the scourge of the camps. We pretend it happened all at once, at a given time and place. We turn a blind eye to what surrounds us and a deaf ear to humanity's never-ending cry." It's like, like I was watching that and like the narrator's like saying that, and I'm just like, I'm devastated and weeping and like questioning, everything. And like, man, it's definitely, I would say, probably one of the best short films ever made. Just really, really good. So yeah, but don't watch it if you're not in a good place, because it's not an easy watch by any means. But
it doesn't sound like it.
But it's one of those where it's like, I wouldn't wish this watch on anyone, but also like it feels important to see, sort of thing.
That's fair. Yeah.
But yeah. So that was my devastating one. I'll hopefully I'm gonna have a sunnier one for my next pick, unless you take it.
Fair enough. From my next one, I think I thought about not drafting this because it's a Wes short.
Okay, that's
But
fine. You can do a West short.
I think I'm going to. You mentioning Italian Americans earlier kind of made me think, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and draft, because I don't know, I feel like a lot of people will have not seen this just because of it being a short.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my favorite West short, even with these 4 being out. This is still my favorite West short. Castello Cavalcanti, the 2013 short by Wes Anderson, about Jason Schwartzman as as a race car driver, an Italian immigrant from living in America, who's out in Europe doing some big race and just happens to break down in his family's hometown.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, it's so, I don't know, just the coincidence of everything and his deadpan performance through the whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I absolutely love it.
It's a fun one for sure. Mm-hmm. And it's an ad, I think.
Is it? Several of his shorts are.
Yeah. Like he has one that's an ad for, I can't remember what it's an ad for now that I'm trying to think. But like at the end of it, the brand comes up. At least like the one I watched was. There might be a version that exists that doesn't have that, but yeah, there's that. There's also the one that's like a Christmas on a train.
Yeah, that one's I know that one's an ad.
That one's an ad for sure. It's like
maybe for like H&M or somebody.
Yeah, it's definitely a retail clothing place. Yeah, that one is really fun. The Castello Cavalcanti. Yeah, that's a fun one. the wrecked car. It might be a good one to pair with Ferrari if you want to go watch Ferrari. Very different, but car like old race cars are wrecked in both. So that's great. Okay, this is my 4th pick. And I'm going to now have a much sunnier pick. And I'm going to pick Agnes Varda's 1967 short, Uncle Yanko. And so this is actually the very first... So Agnes Varda is a French director that I've wanted to, catch up with for a while now.
Gotcha.
Her most popular movie is Cleo from 5 to 7, which is also on pretty high up now on the Sight and Sound critics list. And she has some others that are really, really well regarded.
Gotcha. I don't think I've heard of her, so I'll definitely be putting this on the list.
Yeah, but this Uncle Yanko is this is the first of any. I'll actually watch 3 of her shorts because I liked this so much. I was like, I've got to fit in some more Agnes Varda shorts.
Nice.
And I'll get a feature in here soon because I'm like, I love these, so I've got to love the features. But Uncle Yanko is this 18-minute short. She is in she's French, but she's in San Francisco, and she has this like, he's actually like kind of a distant cousin, but she calls him uncle. That he's an old man that immigrated to San Francisco. And I think he's maybe like her dad's cousin or something like that. And she like reunites with him. They've never met before, but like, he's like, oh, you're so-and-so's daughter. And she's like, yeah. And he's like this Dutch French guy, old man that's like living in San Francisco in this like water community. They all live in like boats and houseboats, and like he's friends with like all the hippies and like has them over to his place. And but like what I've found from watching these few Agnes Varda shorts is she is like really incredible at like finding something like very thought provoking within like mundanity. And so she's just like having these normal conversations with Uncle Yanko, but it turns into this like reflection on life and relationships, and it's just really like, I was watching it and I was like, this is really interesting and thought provoking. And also like the subject matter is very like I said, I'm turning to a more sunnier one. Like he's like the sweetest dude, like the old dude, and he's like so humble and sweet and like has some like, you know, old man like wisdom that he shares, and it's just like it makes you smile like and there's this line where she's eating at a restaurant with him, and you know there's some people he knows like that eat there all the time too, and you know she's narrating it also, and she says my uncle wanted to take me to a my uncle wanted to take me in public so you know he could see, so his friends could see him with me, and I want to document my uncle so people can sit in a dark theater and watch him. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. That's just such a like, but it's like the way she delivers it, it's like much more profound than what I just said. But it's like, I just loved it. And it's a sweet short film, and also like very like thought provoking. So yeah. I'm not gonna draft more than one of hers, but the other, I actually rated that one 5 stars, and another one called Along the Coast, which is, she was actually like asked to make like a travel documentary for the French Riviera.
Gotcha.
And it's like, but it, when you watch it, it's very like tongue in cheek, like very like French humor, tongue in cheek. You can tell like she's like, all right, I'll make this for you, but I'm making it very like, it's not gonna be like come to, you know, sunny French Riviera. Right. It's very like French like cutting humor about like the state of things.
That's great.
Yeah. I loved that one. And then there was one called Ulysses, and it's this like reflection on this picture she had taken of this nude guy and kid on a beach, and there's a dead goat also laying in there in the picture, and she's like she goes back and talks with the man that was in the picture, and then the boy who's now like an adult with a family of his own, and the boy's mom. Like she goes back and interviews them about the picture and stuff, and even like reflects on the dead goat. And it's a really good one too.
Nice.
I watched. So those are 3. Agnes Varda. The one I'm drafting, Uncle Yanko, though, was my favorite of those 3. So yeah, that's my 4th pick.
Cool. Let's see. For my 4th pick, I'm gonna go with I don't know. I feel like George Millier, or however you say his name, needs to come up at some point in this conversation. I don't know if you had something on your list or not. But so the one I'm gonna pick, his most famous one by far would be Journey to the Moon.
Yeah, Trip to the Moon.
Trip to the Moon. Yeah. Thank you. But the one I'm going to draft, just for the sake of recommending one that isn't that, since I suppose that's kind of the obvious one that people will have seen, if they
or heard of
at least. Yeah. I'm going to recommend one from 1899 called The Devil in a Convent.
Okay.
A lot of his shorts, or a lot of his, I don't know that they would have been conceptualized as shorts at the time.
Yeah, they were just films.
Yeah. A lot of his films seem to have like the devil as like a main character,
Yeah.
just in kind of like an old, almost like vaudeville type, theatrical,
Yeah.
kind of, it's an excuse to have a character that's, like turning capers and doing, weird conjuring tricks and stuff.
Right.
Uh, so that's exactly what it is. Uh, it starts out with a bunch of nuns praying in a convent, and then the devil shows up and does a bunch of hijinks. And the thing with George Méliès's films, I'm just going to roll with that as the pronunciation. The way that the way his films work is it's a lot of just him being playful with editing and cutting,
Yeah.
and just like just trying to make the most fun thing that you can put on film. And that's exactly what this is. You just have things appearing out of nowhere,
Right.
through the magic of film. And
Yeah.
and then at the very end, priests come in and drive him back into hell. And it's
Yeah.
it's great. It's fun.
That's awesome. What remind me the name of it again, so I can write it down.
The Devil in a Convent.
Okay.
Le Diable au Convent, I suppose.
In French,
Yeah.
I've only seen of his films, The Trip to the Moon. I take that back. I've seen a 1 minute one from like 1899 that I can't think of what it's called, but it's basically just like the devil dancing around a cauldron.
Gotcha.
But the trip to the moon is a good one to watch as well.
It is.
It's like it's pretty inventive, and like it's basically like these wizard scientists that decide they're going to go to the moon, and they bring back an alien, and like things don't go well, I guess. But I don't know how many of that. Again, that's the only one really I've watched. But I pulled that up on Max because it was on there, and started watching it. This was like last year, I think I watched it, and it was in color, kind of.
Yeah,
and I was so confused about it, and I stopped and I was like, there's no way this is in color. And so I went and looked it up to be sure. The dude painted every frame of the film.
Yes.
So that it would be in color. How ridiculous is that?
I know, it's fantastic. The Martin Scorsese film Hugo.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, but he's like the George Méliès is like a character in that movie. The Ben Kingsley character that's who that is.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I remember when I had seen that film, his wife, the character that plays his wife, she's talking to Hugo, the little boy, after he's found them, and kind of explaining, who they were and what they used to do. And that's one of the things she mentions is like, oh yeah, we would go through and meticulously hand paint every piece of film that left our studio.
That is absolutely wild.
Yes.
Wild. Yeah. George Méliès definitely needs to be mentioned and represented here, and so does one of my favorite filmmakers ever, in Buster Keaton.
Absolutely.
I have not. So I've seen all of his features, and I've seen a good chunk of his shorts. I haven't seen all of them. The only one I watched for the first time for this was The Goat, which was really good. But my favorite, it's my favorite of his shorts that I've seen so far, and also just one of my favorite things he's ever done, even with his features, is the 1920 short 1 Week. It is about this newlywed couple showing up to their plot of land that they got, and they have a like DIY house basically in a box, and so they have to like build their house, and there's just this box sitting on this plot of land that they've bought, and yeah, it's the title is 1 week because it's like 1 week, the first week of their marriage, and then building this house and trying to have a normal domestic life, but obviously it's Buster Keaton, so the house building doesn't go so well, nor do things go well once the house is built.
Right.
I actually watched this with my son, maybe like a couple of years ago. He's 4, almost 5 now, and I want to say he was probably 3 maybe when he watched this with me, and he loved it. There's a sequence where the house is like literally spinning, and like the whole house is spinning, and he loved that. But yeah, I wonder what he would think about it now that things change a lot from 3 to 5.
They do.
But yeah, there's not a minute that passes in this whole 20 minutes that I wasn't like chuckling or laughing out loud. And then like it has like a really sweet like take on marriage too. Like they kind of like walk off into they kind of like throw the cares of like a normal quote unquote domestic life like over their shoulder and walk off like hand in hand at the end. It's like really sweet. And I guess I should say spoiler alert, but I mean it's not. It was made in 1920, guys. Like you can't spoil 1920 movies. And it doesn't really take away from doesn't really take away from like there's not a suspense of are they going to stay together. Really, it's
sure.
Yeah, I just love it. It makes me smile. It's hilarious, and Buster Keaton's one of my favorites, so I had to take one of his.
Absolutely.
Hello again. Do you know how you can really support the show for free in just a few minutes or less? That's right. Just leave a rating and review on Spotify and Apple, or wherever you listen that might allow for ratings and reviews. These really help the visibility of the podcast. In fact, just hit that pause button right now and drop the review right now. And then you can get back to the show. I'd greatly appreciate it. Okay. I trust that you went and left that rating and review now. Back to the show.
That was my 5th, so this is going to be your 5th.
Okay. For my number 5, I'm going to go with... Okay, we both just had really old picks. I'm going to go with a fairly, I guess not super new pick, but a very different feeling pick, certainly.
Okay.
I'm going to go with 2015's Kung Fury by David Sandberg.
I do not know this one.
This is so it's a parody of like 80s cop movies.
Okay.
The setup is there's this cop who one night on duty there had been some sort of freak accident, and he had gotten struck by lightning, and he gets these supernatural kung fu powers.
All right.
And his partner died the same night, so he's jaded and bitter, and he's the best cop on the beat, but he's always being too hard on the criminals, so the chief is constantly threatening to take him off the job. And anyhow, it turns into a time traveling adventure of him going back in time to try and stop Hitler from invading the future.
That's great.
And yeah, it's
wild.
As over the top and insane as it sounds, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay, that's great.
So that's Kung Fury.
Kung Fury.
Yep.
Love it. All right. My next pick, it's hard. I only have 2 more. and I watched so many good ones, and so it's kind of hard. Um, okay, I'll do this. I'll go ahead and I'm going to be leaving out some that I really, really thought were phenomenal. But I'm going to go ahead and take. Now it's a question of which one. I'm going to go ahead and draft a Pixar short.
Okay.
And the reason why is because, like, that's like, I guess Pixar shorts are kind of like foundational to my growing up. You know, I was born in early 90s. And so, like, when Toy Story came out, I was like a kid that wants to go see movies, you know, animated movies. And so, you know, and I have memories of these shorts, like all growing up, seeing them, you know, before the features. And so I guess it's like more of a nostalgia pick. One of my favorites, and you can draft this. I don't know if I'm like ruining the draft by mentioning it. One that I'm not. Probably the one that I like the most is Bao.
Bao is great.
With the dumpling. I love it. It's like sweet and sad, but like really sweet and like really funny at the same time.
Yes.
I'm not going to draft that one. I'm going to draft the one that like I've always remembered from my childhood, and I'm going to take Jerry's Game. I love Jerry's Game. It's
great choice.
It's so funny. It makes me laugh. It's like creative. It's just this 4-minute short of an old man playing himself in chess. That's all there is to it.
Yep.
And it's hilarious. And I've always like, it's one of those that like, I guess comes to mind randomly just because it's something from my childhood that I remember seeing. And it's not by any means the first Pixar short, but it is a very early one. And I think it's the first one that was released attached to the front of a movie, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right. Is that in front of Bug's Life?
I think so, yeah. Because Toy Story didn't have one in front of it, but then Bug's Life did,
right?
And this was the one in front of Bug's Life. And I definitely know that I saw Bug's Life in theaters and would have seen this in theaters too. So just like a nostalgia pick. And this is like one of the picks that I was talking about where like the votes may sway in my direction because most people probably will recognize Jerry's Game.
Probably.
But yeah. And like I said, I'm trying to get some variety here. There's other shorts that I like that I think are like much better like film than Jerry's Game.
Sure.
But it's the nostalgia factor for me and trying to get some variety. But yeah, that was my 6th pick. I only have one more. Now it's your 6th pick.
Okay. From my 6th pick.
It's tough. There's still a lot of great ones.
There are.
We're going to have to do a lot of honorable mentions.
I'm gonna go with this wouldn't necessarily be one that people have necessarily seen, but it's names that they'll know. So
okay.
I might get some points back for this one.
Yeah, wise choice.
I'm going to go ahead and draft Vincent by Tim Burton.
Yeah, Vincent. It's a good one.
It's a very good one.
Mm-hmm.
1982. Tim Burton as a young up and coming animator at Disney.
Yeah.
And it's just a love letter to Vincent Price, and I love Vincent Price, so I'm happy to draft it.
Yeah.
It's just a little boy named Vincent whose goal in life is to be just like Vincent Price, and so he's just being creepy and strange in all the ways you would expect a little boy in an early Tim Burton short to be.
Sure.
And it's it's hand drawn in a way that just makes sense for a Tim Burton movie, and
narrated by Vincent Price.
And narrated by Vincent Price. which is he always does a great job with any voice work he gets.
Oh yeah,
But especially in this, like
Yeah.
he's got some really fun, like the way he says his own name.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this is so much fun.
hmm Yeah, it's good. It's a fun one. I watched it. I had never seen it before. I watched it in prep for this. It wasn't like towards the top of my list, but I did enjoy. I did enjoy it a lot. But yeah, Tim Burton. It's funny. Like it's funny to think about him as like a Disney animator.
Yeah.
And like I actually was like listening to a podcast about Nightmare Before Christmas recently, and like Disney did not want anything to do with that movie until like it blew up, and then they were like, "Oh yeah," like they actually like the original film didn't have Disney.
No, yeah,
on it.
they put it out under
like they distributed it, but they put it out under like search was not Searchlight.
no,
One of their other like things that they own.
yeah, the same distribution company they own that they had put Rushmore out through, actually.
Okay, yeah. And it wasn't until like you can still, it's probably like a collector's item now to get like the original like VHS or DVDs or whatever that don't have the Disney logo before, before the movie. But yeah, if you watch it on Disney Plus now, of course it has the castle and everything. Like they're proud of it now that it's blown up.
Yeah, originally they were scared.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But yeah, there was who was the other guy that was in that era of Disney with Tim Burton? There's another popular guy. I can't think of who it was.
Oh, Bluth. Don Bluth. Is that who you're thinking of?
Maybe. I don't know. But it was like but yeah, with Disney there was like two like basically two schools within the Disney animation school. And there's like the experimental one and then the like narrative one or something like that. And like, but it was like these cliques, these animation cliques. Really, it's really funny to think about. But yeah, Tim Burton as a Disney animator is a very funny idea.
It really is.
But he loved it. He was he worked on Fox and the Hound.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about. But yeah. Vincent is a good choice. I do have one. I have the two animated ones now. Man, this is really tough. Really, really tough. There are actually a few more animated ones that I would love to take. Two of which are like very nostalgic and like hilarious, and I think are still like really, really good. But I think I'll do those in honorable mentions. And there's a bit of a theme here in that the French really make some great short films. But I'm going to take La Ballon Rouge, or The Red Balloon. Did you catch up with this one?
I have not, but I've heard of it.
Oh man, it's directed by Albert Lemerise, and I'm realizing the little boy in this movie is Pascal Lemerise, and I wonder if it was his son. I would imagine so.
I bet it was.
But it's 34 minutes short. It's about this little boy who that comes across this red balloon. And it's a very, like, the way that everything is like filmed is very like drab. And so the red balloon really, really stands out. But he comes across this red balloon. It's like caught on a lamppost or something, and he climbs up and gets it down, and carries it around town. He's going to school, so he gets like the janitor to hold it for him for the day, and then takes it home with him. And his mom or whatever like throws it out. She's like, "No, you can't have the balloon." But then the balloon becomes like this fantastical balloon that has a mind of its own and like follows him around, and like all the kids are like love the balloon, but they also like it becomes like all the kids like decide they don't like this, that the balloon is attached to this one kid, and so they're going to try to destroy the balloon. And so they're like chasing him, and he'll like let go of the balloon and like go somewhere else, but the balloon still like comes back to him. It's like a really, really sweet. And then there's this like sad moment that's like immediately like overblown with this like really like sweet and phenomenal moment that I don't want to give away. It visually is just like awesome, and it makes you smile. Really, really sweet, like little short film about a boy and his magic balloon.
Nice. I'll have to catch up with this soon.
Yeah. It's definitely one that I think you'll love.
Cool.
I think most people would like it. It's on Max and Criterion, I think.
Okay.
Criterion Channel and Max. So Max is pretty accessible. But yeah, that's my last pick, which is sad because there's so many more I want to pick. But yeah, it's your last pick. This is it.
Oh boy.
You're just gonna have to bite the bullet and take one, because that's what I had to do.
Yeah. Neither of us have mentioned any stop motion in this, so I'm gonna go with a stop motion pick.
That's a good point.
I'm gonna go with Paul Barry's The Sandman.
Okay. I don't know this one.
So this is a 10-minute short. It's a silent short.
Okay.
And it's very much a horror short. It's the idea of the Sandman is like the creature that comes and messes with your dreams at night and stuff. So it's a little boy and his mother living in this huge, great big house.
Yeah.
And it really captures like the that sense of fear of like being a child at night, like up way later than you should be, just can't sleep, and kind of that kind of like creeping feeling, of like, what's going on in the dark, what's that creaking in the house and all that.
Yeah.
The use of the claymation is great. The models are great. The guy that directed it, he went on to work with why can't I think of his name? The guy that did Nightmare Before Christmas.
Henry Selick?
Henry Selick. He went on to work with Henry Selick a good bit. So his model work is fantastic. The Sandman character is very creepy looking and memorable looking, and it's a short that's really going to stay in your mind after you've seen it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm glad we got one stop motion in there. Because we really did leave that out. Man, it's crazy how many honorable mentions I want to mention. I don't know that we can do all of them, but yeah, there's a lot of great short films out there, and a lot of them, some of them are pretty hard to find, but a lot of them are very accessible. Mm-hmm. You can find a lot of short films on YouTube.
You really can.
I don't know how or why. I guess because production companies maybe don't like hold on to rights for those like they do for features.
Maybe there's, I don't know, maybe something to do with like distribution. Maybe that's just not something they're concerned about ever making money on.
Yeah. It's I don't know what it is, but a lot of them are just sitting there on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like some are actually like worth like doing a free trial on some of these streaming places for. I always use I don't know if JustWatch.com has short films. I would imagine they do, but I use Just Watch all the time to figure out where something is streaming or rentable.
Sure. Yeah, I bet they do.
It's a good resource. Yeah. Let's do some honorable mentions.
Sure.
I'll mention. I'll talk about those few of the ones that I mentioned that were like animated. They're animated ones that are very like nostalgic for me. One is called Rejected, and Don Hertzfeldt. He has a lot of like animated shorts. They're like very like crudely not in a like gross sense, but like in a stick figure sense,
Sure.
animated. And I really like his tone. I wish more of his were more easily accessible. They're kind of, some of them are hard. Like you can watch a couple on his YouTube channel, but some of them are kind of hard to get to find. They're not like streaming anywhere. It's just hard to find some of his.
Sure.
And so I wish they were more accessible. But if you go on, his name is Don Hertzfeldt. So that's HERTZFELDT. And you can just probably search him on YouTube. And he has probably like 4 or 5 of his shorts on his YouTube channel that you can watch. One of them is called Rejected, that I just mentioned.
Mhm.
It is a compilation of animated TV commercials that were rejected because of their creator. This is their creator's failing grip on sanity. And it's actually a 2001 Academy Award nominee for Best Animated Short Film. And I remember these from when this came out in 2000, and I remember watching these when I was in like I don't know if I watched them in elementary, but I definitely remember like from middle school watching these. Probably the most popular. So I'm not sure if these were actually submitted as it's framed within the short as like Johnson and Johnson asked me to write some commercials for them, and these were rejected. And then it'll show like some of them. And I think that's just a framing device. I don't think these places actually asked him to make these commercials for him.
That's great.
But I don't know that for sure. Maybe he did. I don't know. But you watch them and you're like, yeah, anyone would reject these. One of them is just this stick figure guy standing there, and there's a bowl of cereal, and he has these giant spoons. One giant spoon, and he just keeps saying, "My spoon is too big." And then a banana guy walks on screen, and he says, "I'm a banana." And then it like does the ad for whatever. For the like, it's just a bunch of stuff like that that's like bizarre. And like one of them, the guys are like, I think it's like a Johnson or maybe like a food thing that and like they eat it, but then they just like start like puking blood on each other. And it's just like, it's these bizarre way out there like animations. And I remember watching these in middle school, and like it was like the funniest thing in the world. And I like, even now, like I watch it and I'm like, this is really funny. But he has a few like World of Tomorrow. He has like a series. There's like World of Tomorrow 2 and 3, I think. But it's like this little girl and her future self comes to the past and like is like explaining all these philosophical things to her. But she's like 3, and so she's just like, "Ooh, it's green now." And it's like, it's just really funny, and probably like a profound reflection of like time and like mature, like the way we mature and like what's important in life.
Sure.
Underlying, but really like just funny. Another one of his is it's actually, I think, mashed together 3 ones into like a feature length. I'm trying to find the one that's on his YouTube channel is the first one. They were originally released as shorts, but they involve like the same character, and so I think he just packaged them as a feature. It's called Everything Will Be Okay, and it's just about this guy Bill and him like reckoning with just like the meaning of life. It's a stick. They're all stick figure stuff, but yeah, his stuff is great. And then the other one is called History of the Entire World, I guess, by Bill Wirtz. And it's literally like this animated, like very sarcastic telling of the history of the world. And it's just really funny. So I love that one. And then I'll do a few more, like more serious ones. La Jetée is a film that's actually like, it's this like, it's really incredible. It's not a motion film. It's actually like a collection of still images that is narrated a story over of this man who's recalling a memory of himself as a boy, seeing this woman and kind of being infatuated, but also like witnessing a man dying. And then it goes on to like be this thing where it's like this post World War III, and like he's being experimented on, traveling through time by these scientists, and he like goes into the past and spends time with this woman that he saw, and then he goes into the future, and like it's really like inventive and interesting storytelling, and it's done with these sequences of still images, showing what would normally be shown like as moving images is shown with still images. And it's this interesting like way of thinking about film as like an exercise in editing, and how like you're editing together still images, whereas normally it would be moving, but it's still like the way you edit together those still images is still like kind of functions in the same way. But also like the story is really interesting and kind of profound and really good. So, yeah, I highly recommend that. La Jetée. It's Lajetee, directed by Chris Marker. That's from 1962. And then I'll do 2 more, even though there's a lot of them that I really like. One is a documentary by a female Iranian director, and it's basically this documentary in support of this group that runs a camp for lepers, like it's a leper colony, and it's really incredible. She goes in and like obviously like a lot of the people that have leprosy have these deformities and just like aren't great to look at. Kind of like, there's people with like messed up skin and boils, and just like it's not fun to look at. But what she does is she goes in and she talks about like their daily life, and it's like these images juxtaposed of their kind of pain and suffering, and like the way this disease is like messed up the way they look, juxtaposed with how they are still like in this colony, they're human beings and they have lives and they do jobs and they like play games together. And it's just like this really cool juxtaposition that like is a very like it just shows the humanity of these people in this leper colony like so incredibly well. I thought like the imagery and the narration was just really good for that. It's called, I didn't say the name of it, did I?
I don't think you did.
It's called The House is Black.
The House is Black.
Yeah. It's by Farrokhzad. And I probably butchered that name, but she's an Iranian director. Well, I say that she's directed two things. That's all. But still, an writing director.
Yeah. You direct one
Um,
thing, you're a director.
And this is what I didn't mention. She's a poet, and so some of it is narration, and some of it is her reading some of her poetry over like the visuals, which is really cool.
That is really cool.
Hello there, listener. Don't you ever want more for your life? Don't you ever dream of surpassing the status of just podcast listener? Well, I've got good news. If you head on over to establishingshotpod.com and click the send a voicemail button on the right side of your screen, you can be featured on the podcast. I'd love to hear from you, whether it's a comment in response to an episode you liked, an opinion of mine you disagreed with, or just a question for me. And if you're too shy to have your voice featured, you can always email me at establishingshotpod@gmail.com. Don't settle for just being a podcast listener. Reach for the stars and get featured on The Establishing Shot. Back to the show.
And then the last one I'll mention is one that I really liked. It's called Daybreak Express by D.A. Pennebaker. It's from 1953, and it's this like really beautiful 5-minute short of Third Avenue elevated subway station in New York City that's soon to be demolished. And it's just like, and it's set to like the music is Duke Ellington's Daybreak Express, which is the name of the film too.
Gotcha.
Which is a very like train sounding jazz piece. It's like, it's just basically like him capturing everyday life, like at the station, on the train, of like the train, you know, from third person. But it's just like the music, like with the visuals, are just like really like fun and cool. And I just think it's like really beautifully filmed. It's a lot of like silhouette with like sunsets and stuff. And I just watched it and I was like, that was really, really cool. It's just 5 minutes. But yeah, I really enjoyed that one. And I'm going to be done now. Obviously, there's like Christmas shorts, which we drafted in the Christmas draft.
Sure.
Like Charlie Brown and Grinch and Frosty and all those. All those are great, but I didn't want to draft them here.
Okay, for me, for honorable mentions, let's see.
There's so many. I could keep going forever, but nobody wants to listen to 2 hours of honorable mentions.
Things that I'd particularly want to mention would be, okay, you mentioned Looney Tunes at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
some good ones.
Yes. So I'm going to kind of go with that same vein, but I'm going to go with, okay, well, you've covered Warner Brothers. I'm going to take the two other like old classic animation houses with Disney and Fleischer. My Disney short that I'm going to recommend is going to be a goofy cartoon called How to Be a Detective.
Okay.
Where it's just a narrator kind of telling you how to be a detective, trying to tell you how to do it well, and Goofy's the one on screen, so obviously he's not doing it well.
Yeah, I think I've seen that before.
And then for Fleischer Studios, the short that I'll recommend is called Dancing on the Moon.
Okay.
So their kind of two famous properties were Popeye and Betty Boop.
Gotcha.
I don't find their animation... To me, their animation is lower quality than Disney and Warner Brothers.
Sure, yeah.
This being one of the exceptions. This is gorgeous from beginning to end. But also, the main reason that I love it so much is the song in it.
Okay.
I don't know how it never got done as like a pop music release of the time, like in the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
But it never did. But it's just an earworm. Like I know that you like me, like I'll just go around like whistling all the time, and I know you do too.
Yeah.
This is one of my go-to like songs to whistle.
Okay.
Is the same is Dancing on the Moon from the short Dancing on the Moon.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
it's a lot of fun.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to check that one out. I'm pretty sure I've seen the Goofy one before, but yeah,
Gotcha.
I'll have to check that one out for sure.
Other standouts. One I'll recommend is a 2018 short from Portugal called How Fernando Pessoa Saved Portugal. It's about a guy who he's a writer for a newspaper, and he gets the job to run the first Coca-Cola ads for Portugal.
Okay.
And the Portuguese government is looking for an excuse to ban this, new American fad product, and they seize on his advertisement as the thing they're going to use to make it illegal. And it's very deadpan, and it's, as far as I know, it's a true story.
Okay.
And I don't know, it's
sounds
just
interesting.
it's a strange story, and it's filmed and delivered very well.
Cool.
I'll also mention one that I had watched earlier this week, actually, is one called Dear Basketball. It's an animated short that it's Kobe Bryant. Like right when whenever he decided to retire, he wrote a poem called Dear Basketball, and it got made into an animated short, and it's just him reading the poem
he
over
won an
it.
Oscar for that one.
Yeah. And for good reason. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, I've seen pieces of it, but I don't think I've watched the whole thing, so I need to watch that.
And then I'll also go ahead and mention a movie that I watched a couple months ago, called Wasp. It's a 2003 movie.
That was on my list, and I didn't get around to it.
Andrea Arnold is the director. It's a British movie. Very, very good. It's just a kind of a day in the life story of a young single mother who's got like 5 kids and just kind of struggling her way through life and trying to be a bad mom, failing to be a bad mom, but I don't know, it's a good watch. Yeah. It even though she's just doing a terrible job, you're still rooting for her and sympathetic for her. And
sounds kind of like the Florida Project, but with less kids.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever know anything about that movie.
I
love that movie, but yeah. I said I was done. I did want to mention a couple, 2 more very quickly. One is Luis Buñuel's Un Chien Andalou, which is a avant-garde surrealist film that's like, if you just want to watch a short 16-minute film and then it ends and you're like, what in the world did I just watch? Then this is the one for you.
Fair.
Because when it says surrealist, it is to the nth degree. It's wild. It ended and I was like, I don't know what in the world I just watched, but I do know that it was very well made. The other one is more straightforward. It's by a Polish director. I don't know that I should try to say this name. I think it's just Krzysztof Kieslowski. That's my pronunciation anyways. And it's just called Talking Heads.
Okay.
And I thought it was really interesting. It basically, he has 3 questions. He finds different people. He asks, who are you? What do you want? It's just 2 questions. I thought it was 3. Who are you and what do you want from life? I think the way he phrases it in the actual film is like, what do you wish for? Who are you and what do you wish for? And he asks, over the 15-minute short, he asks people starting with a 1-year-old, who obviously like doesn't answer the questions, but just makes noises. all the way up to a 100-year-old lady.
Mm.
And so he doesn't ask like, it's not like there's 100 people.
Sure.
It jumps in ages, but they progressively get older, the interviewees, as the film goes on, and you end with the 100-year-old lady. And it's just like really, really interesting to hear people's answers. Some of them are like just like very simple. Some of them are like very like young and trying to sound profound. Some of them are profound. You know, it's just a really interesting like concept, I think. But yeah, that one's Talking Heads. And then there's a lot of other great things. We could go on for a long time.
We could.
If you want to watch an interesting one that came out last year that you can just watch on YouTube, I think it's on the New York Times YouTube, actually.
Oh, okay.
Because they did a piece on it. It's by an Israeli director, Yahav Winner. It's called The Boy. And the interesting story behind this one is Winner had put this movie out, and he actually was killed by Hamas.
Oh, wow.
By a Hamas raid. This past year. Because
October 7th one?
I don't know if it was that one or something else. I can't remember. I read a good bit of the article that the New York Times did on him, along with the putting out the movie on YouTube. But like he was one of those guys that was constantly like talking and thinking about the humanity of everyone that's just like common people trying to deal with that situation on both sides. And it really like comes through in the film. It's just about this boy and this Israeli family that like he obviously has some sort of PTSD, or he has some sort of like mental anxiety or something going on that's not like expressly stated, I don't think, that he's taking pills for. But he like is constantly like doing these walks like along the fence line and like looking at the other side. And there's this constant like there's sirens that happen, you know, all the time, and there's constant like just explosions happening in the background. And it's like it's really good. And I think it's probably true to, based on what his wife, you know, said in interviews and stuff, true to like his mindset of the way he thought about that whole situation and war and everything. But yeah, if you want to stretch your limits and like watch a film that, you know, talks about a hard subject, a hard subject matter, by someone that was in the middle of it, then yeah, that's a really good one. The Boy by Yahav Winner. Yeah, and that one's just on YouTube. Pull it up today. Yeah, that's our short film movie draft. I'm going to read out our results. I ended up with Meshes of the Afternoon, The House of Small Cubes, Night and Fog, Uncle Yanko, 1 Week, Jerry's Game, and The Red Balloon. And Chase ended up with What's a Girl Like You Doing in a Place Like This, Crack, Castello Cavalcanti, The Devil in a Convent, Kung Fury, Vincent, and The Sandman. And obviously, all of these will end up in the poll. People will vote. Yes. They probably haven't seen most or all of these.
Most people have probably seen Jerry's Game.
I would think so.
Yeah.
And most people know Tim Burton.
True.
So
most people know Martin Scorsese.
That's true. Yeah. So you've got those two going for you. But yeah, well, it'll be fun to put this out, and maybe people will queue some of these up and watch them. But yeah, I think that's it for our movie draft. It would have been interesting, I think, to allow shorts that are in like anthology movies.
Sure.
But that's a whole different thing.
That is.
Because there's some really good ones out there that are in anthology movies. Like, for some reason, the one that comes to mind is The Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Oh, yeah.
Which those are all pretty much standalone shorts that are, collected in the anthology.
Right.
But when you were talking about the Sandman and the stop motion and kind of horror aspect, it made me think of The House, which I kind of think I drafted in our stop motion draft, if I'm not mistaken. But it came out 2022, maybe.
Okay.
And it's an anthology of like stop motion, kind of like two of the three are definitely like I would definitely consider a horror of some sort, and one that's like maybe a little less so. But yeah, they would be interesting to include some of those
for sure. Maybe sometime you'll do an anthology draft.
I do have an anthology episode for Spielberg, because he directed a piece of the Twilight Zone movie,
right,
and the Amazing Stories feature film that came out. He directed part of those, so maybe we'll do an anthology movie draft.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know if I've seen enough anthology movies to do a full draft, but we'll see.
I know you've seen all the package film era Disney movies.
That's true. There's not very many good ones, but I have seen them. Yeah. But yeah, that's it for the short film draft. Go watch some short films. It's fun. I've enjoyed this, and I'm going to keep watching short films every once in a while. Absolutely. Make that a part of my my watching routine. So yeah, this has been a good endeavor for me for sure. And I know Chase already watches short films pretty regularly.
I do.
But yeah, this was fun. Chase, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
We'll share your Letterboxd again. Your Letterboxd is Chables, Chabbles, and the link will be in the show notes. There's not anywhere else you want. Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah.
I'm not very active on social media.
Yeah.
So if you want to go stare at some pages that don't get anything posted on them, you can look up the same handle on most things. But
Letterboxd, and Letterboxd is the place to be anyways.
It really is. It's a very useful.
Yeah. It's useful, and like there's a if you like actually start following people and commenting, there's a cool like little community there too.
For sure.
But yeah, that's it. That's our short film draft. It was also fun talking about the Wes Anderson shorts. So if you haven't listened to that portion, make sure to check that out. But yeah, it's been fun. I've been Eli Price. For Chase Ables, you've been listening to The Establishing Shot, and we will see you next time.
We were happy here. For a little while.
But look, I figure it this way. Better to be king for a night than schmuck for a lifetime.